Let's make this pair of beautiful chandelier earrings together. Hey there, I'm Amrita from Atria Jewelry, and we're going to make these earrings today. I'm going to link the Pandahall most recent haul video in the cards up above and the description down below. What I got from that haul were these beads and these headbands. So we're going to do this project with this as well as using some other supplies that I have with me. So I have these blue-green beautiful 6 mm round beads and then these 2-inch metal headpins. So they're silver toned headpins. We're going to need 6 headpins and 6 of those 6 mm beads. And I also have 8 4 mm bicone crystals in green. You're also going to need 16 gauge wire. I'm using silver plated wire here, and I have 2 lengths, 5 inches each. And then you're going to need some 24 or 22 gauge wire, again silver plated here. About a foot is plenty. We're basically using it to wrap the beads. You will also need some ear wires, and I have this pair of balled ear wires ready to go. Tools you will need: a ruler, a flush cutter, a bent nose or chain nose pliers, needle nose or chain nose pliers, so you need 2 pairs of pliers, a round nose or a 6-step bail making plier. I like the 6-step looping pliers because then my loops are more consistent. And last but not the least, a metal or jeweler's file. To start, we're going to make the frame of the earrings. We want to make a bend at about 2.75 inches. We want one side to be slightly longer than the other side. So this is 2.75, and I have a little bit of ruler over here. So I'm going to go down just a little bit and mark out 2.75. I like doing both the wires together so I get kind of the same sizing without too much effort. Now we're going to start with the third step. So 1, 2, 3, the third step of the looping pliers. And I'm going to make my initial loop. I'm going to do both the earrings at the same time. Again, I want the sizes to be as close to each other as possible. We're going to do both together. And I don't know if you noticed, but I'm doing them in the opposite direction. So here the longer one is under going off to the right, and here the longer one is under going off to the left. I like making my earrings in the mirror image. You don't have to do that. My preference. And again, I'm just putting them over each other just to make sure the loop is as close as I can get it. Once I do that, I'm going to use this plier again around the third step, just about wire distance away, wire thickness away from the loop. And the one that's going under, I'm going to go over that base wire. And then just use my flat nose or bent nose pliers just to push that down. And then for this one, I'm going to do the same thing, but go under that wire. We're making that fleur-de-lis sort of club pattern here. I will link the video. I've done a 4-leaf clover video with a similar technique, so I will link that up in the cards and down in the description below. So that's a little easier. So if you want to watch that first and try that, I will make this simpler to understand too. At each stage, I'm just going to flatten that. Okay. Again, it's one up, one down. And then for this one, we do the same thing around that third step. There we go. So again, about the same size. They're not going to be completely identical, but I want to get them as close as possible. And now the shorter one, I'm going to roll inward. I'm using the first step of the looping pliers and making a almost closed curl, not closing it all the way. And then I'm going to curl that down to make an open loop all the way down. I'm going to do the same thing with this one, this shorter one. Again, almost a closed curve, and then curl that down. I do want to make sure that the height is the same of that curl. So I'm going to put these earrings both against a flat surface and just make sure that the height is the same. So to show you what I do is just press that down against a flat surface. Difficult to do it in this angle, so bear with me. Yeah, so see, they kind of line up, which is good, which is what we want. So now that we have that created, we have our mirror image of both the earrings ready. We're going to curl this longer wire off to the top like that. Make sure that's centered. There we go. I'm going to do the same with this one. And this curl around the top. I want to make sure it's touching that top. And then we're going to snip off some of this excess wire. I'm going to snip off about 1/2 inch. Now, I always do that a little longer because I would rather be left with a little longer wire than less wire. Then I'm going to use the first step of the looping pliers to make a loop on the top. There. And this is where the ear wire would go. So there we have the beautiful flower tops. Now at this point, you can choose to hammer and texture it. Because this is plated wire, I'm not doing that. If I was working with copper, I would. I don't want too much of the plating to come off. So I'm going to leave that as is. Now for the fun bead part. So we're going to be using 24 gauge to make wrap loops and then using the head pins to make the crystal dangles. I'm going to use my first step of the looping plier to make a loop, slide it onto the frame, and then hold that down with my needle nose pliers and wrap the shorter wire around the longer one 3 times. And slide on my bead. Make another wrapped loop on the top, wrapping it 3 times. I'm snipping the wire off as I go so I don't miss any. Oh. Then if you're working off of a spool like I am here, I'm going to get the beads on. and then do the wraps. Then it's, that way I'm not wasting much of the wire. Not so much a problem when you're working with copper or plated wire, but if you're working with some precious metals like you're doing silver wire or gold wire, it can get pretty expensive pretty quickly. But either way, I don't like wasting too much. So I try to work off of the spool or use cut-offs as much as I can. That's perfect when I don't even have to trim off too much of that wire. That's like a perfect example. Now we have our two beads attached. We're going to attach the crystal to the center one. And then the last bead be attached to that crystal. We want the center one to be a little longer. We did crystal, bead, crystal. Bead up. And wrap that. Again, snipping off any of the excess wires that I haven't snipped off so far. And then tuck in any really short ones. I like running my fingers over the edges just to make sure it's not catching on anything. And then I straighten the wires as well. Okay, now we just have to attach the crystals at the bottom. So again, I'm taking the head pins, slipping on a crystal, making a 90-degree bend, 45 to 90-degree bend on the top, making a loop around my smallest step of the looping plier, and snipping that wire off. Let's do all three and then we can attach them. To attach them, I'm opening up the loop, Slipping that onto one of the wrap loops. Now all that's left to do is attach a pair of ear wires to it. I have a pair of ear wires here that I'm going to open up and slide the earring on and close. And I like giving my ear wires a little bit more of a curve. I typically make my own ear wires, but I had these lying around from another kit, so we're using that. I'm just going to check to make sure not all the ear wires you get that are pre-made um, have the edges filed down, so I like to make sure they're smooth and round. And there we go. We have a beautiful pair of blue and green chandelier earrings ready. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Have a beautiful day.